Let's talk about housing. This is always so important and one that we're always trying to keep an eye on. And it's one of the chief reasons why, despite the fact that people like Paul Krugman are always like, oh, the economy, we're making one of the most stunning recoveries ever. And then
Extraordinary.
inflation numbers come out literally the next day showing that gas is reaching nearly completely unaffordable heights, that grocery prices and all of that remain flat and very high over the last couple of years. Well, this is probably the core. It all comes back to cost of living and housing and shelter with being a key driver of inflation over the last couple of years. Let's put this up there on the screen where even the financial papers are beginning to take notice. They say Americans can barely afford homes, and that's a problem for Biden. Quote, housing affordability has declined to the lowest level on record. But what I thought that they did a great job of was not just talking about it on the macro number, but zooming in on a state like Wisconsin, where, as they accurately point out, they can show you very clearly that in the city of Milwaukee, in the swing state of Wisconsin, you have a huge drop in overall housing affordability, which is making it nearly impossible to argue to the general population there that things are going well. Their deterioration in the rental market is, quote, more than almost any U.S. metro area in the year ending in July, according to the National Association of Realtors, and one of the largest increases in mortgage burdens amongst the biggest 50 markets, Krystal. That's just the city of Milwaukee. And it actually completely makes sense, and it tracks with a lot of what we talked about how industrial Midwestern cities, which have seen in some cases a slight like net migration inflow and people coming from the east and the west coast, either moving back home or moving to more rural, not rural, but like second tier cities, I guess, as opposed to like the bigger global cosmopolitan cities, are driving up the overall market. You're seeing a major drop in supply, largely because interest rates are so high. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to sell, a major lockup. And in a city like Milwaukee, there's a lot of poor people who live in Milwaukee, and there's a lot of people who have to work also in the service sector as well, and they're being pushed out of the overall rental and housing economy. And whenever you find your lease expiring, and then you're going out and you're looking, people are just finding complete sticker shock at both of the options that they have and having to make plans of like, yeah, maybe I got a 4% raise, but my rent is up by 25% that's coming up, and the landlord wants like first and last month's rent or
Yeah.
something like that. So you got to cough up like huge portions of cash on top of moving costs and all of that. And you're looking at a multi-thousand-dollar transaction that a normal single family is having to deal with.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I mean, this issue is so central, and it is hanging out there as an obvious place for a politician who was savvy and wanted to actually gain some ground, because this pain is at every level of the income spectrum outside of the wealthy, who are just fine.
Correct, because they have houses.
Right, because they have houses. But when you poll Gen Z, the inability to buy a home, they cited that as the second largest source of their unhappiness. This is a massive issue in community after community across the country. And you can understand why. I thought there was a really good quote in here from a political science professor who said, listen, this contributes to a general sense that the American dream is out of reach, and that if the Democratic Party promises a middle-class American dream and it's failing, I think those voters are more likely to listen to the Republican Party. And it's not that Republicans have offered any answers on this. They haven't. But if you're supposed to be the party as the Democrats who are representing working class and middle class interests, and under your watch as Joe Biden, that ability to even aspire to the classic American dream feels like it's falling away, as it does for many, many people, guess who's going to get the blame? I mean, it's really not rocket science. So there was a proposal in way back when they were talking about Build Back Better to, help to surge housing and help to try to improve the situation. But you really need an aggressive top to bottom approach to deal with this, because, this level of housing unaffordability is just an absolute crisis and really eats at the core of our own self-conception as a nation, let alone anybody's ability to feel like they can ever have some sort of stable situation, stable middle-class prosperity that they can pass forward to their kids. We covered the fact, for young people, for millennials, trying to buy a house who are not that young at this point, they have to basically have mom and dad to write the down payment.
The vast majority of them, they're able to do so, at least in an affordable market, in a supermarket like DC New York and others are going to their parents with a
Yeah.
down payment.
And so you need help for first-time buyers in terms of that down payment. You need to do something about permanent capital coming in and swooping in and buying up these neighborhoods. This has become even more, I was just looking at the numbers, it's become even more of an issue in the high interest rate landscape because they're the ones who can pay all
They've
cash.
got cash, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're coming in with an all cash offer and you got someone else trying to scrape together, figure out their mortgage situation, and it's wildly unaffordable, et cetera, like guess who's going to end up with those homes? This is a deliberate strategy at this point. So you got to help first-time home buyers. You've got to do something about permanent capital. You've got to make sure you're surging housing supply and not just leaving it to whatever the developers want to build. Because guess what, guys? Guess what they want to build? Luxury high-rises. And that is not going to benefit the broad population that's looking for more affordable housing. So I think that this issue is so incredibly central and so wildly underestimated and under-discussed in terms of our political and media system.
100%. You can even see it a lot in the data. Let's put this up there, for example. This is just one of the latest polls on the economy. It's like voters feel a little bit better about the economy, but very few credit Biden. Most Americans disapprove of the president's economic policy, posing a challenge to his reelection. And I think it's just over and over comes back to structural factors that our media, CPI, and all of that, they don't measure properly. They don't understand how disheartening it can be for people who are in that time of their lives where they feel as if they've done everything right. They followed all the right steps and they still are unable to. They quote and they look at several people here in the Milwaukee area who are like, yeah, the only reason I got a house is because half of the house is not even finished. Now I got to pay more for that house and I have to spend the next several years modeling this when previously I could have bought something which wasn't like that. And then over and over again, it's happening to people, even with families, people who thought that they were right on the cusp of being able to, as you said, if you're an elder millennial now, you're like in your late 30s and early 40s, and to not have the ability to buy a house is a major determination of generational wealth. So overall, yeah, I think this is going to be one of the biggest drags. You think about car prices. You got an average car, new car costs $50,000, and you're financing it at what, 7-8% interest rate. We know that several states have average car payments of over $1,000, largely people who are buying trucks and some such. I mean, all of that is just not going to keep up with where the wages are right now in this country.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And so there's all this political class confusion of like, oh, some of the numbers are better, and why aren't people feeling it? It's really not complicated, and I do genuinely think that housing affordability is such a key part of why people do not feel like this economy is working for them whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.